And away from politics, the National Treasury faces the test of credibility as it prepares to table its 2025 budget statement in the National Assembly in less than 3 weeks in the backdrop of missed tax targets and new spending pressures. Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi sat down with our very own business reporter, Kefa Mwiruri, who quizzed him on the reality of fiscal projections, lessons from last year's budget fallout, and Kenya's relations with its external funders, including the IMF and the World Bank. Take a listen.
Buenos Dias, thank you very much for agreeing to this opportunity. We know there are only days to the budget statement for 2025 presentation, and I'll begin to start there of this calm in the street vis-a-vis what we had last year. How do you feel? What do you feel you've done different to, to achieve that sort of calm vis-a-vis what we saw last year in a bungled budget process?
Yeah, I think last year's events was a learning point for us all, and those of us who are in government or joined the government after that, we had to look for ways of doing things differently. One of the concerns of the public when they were agitating was that there was no much involvement, there was no openness and transparency in the budget process and the generation of the finance bill, which I think this year we have done differently. We were more involving from the word go. In fact, as early as last year, we started the process of budget and we started involving people. We have done quite a bit of engagement apart from the sectoral meetings. We have done even some public engagements with the people in the streets. I've personally led by engaging Bunge la Wananchi in the streets in Nairobi, Vijivanji. I went to Mombasa. We also had public engagement outside the Treasury building. We have also had meetings with the youth at the Treasury. I have met with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. I've met with various stakeholders, professional bodies, the bankers, the oil sector, or the petroleum sector or industry. I have also engaged here together with my team, the digital media MDs. I have managed to have an engagement with the youth, whom I would call the real Gen Zs. So we have had quite a bit of engagement. And we have also had engagement in the media, where I have led personally as a cabinet secretary, holding the engagement that we had at Daystar University. We have also had local vernacular stations and radio talk shows. So a lot of engaging with the people and a lot of interaction and making public what we have provided in the finance bill and the budget estimates. Yeah. At the same time, you are seeing a supplementary budget, the third adjustment to the current budget cycle. And we would like to understand, your directorate budget, Albert Mwenda, explained the reasons for why we might need some adjustments. So what do you expect to see in supplementary 3 effectively? Yeah, so you will observe or realize that this financial year 24-25 was a very tough one. Remember the events of last year. We have been trying to monitor a few things, one of which is that we lost the finance bill of last year, and we wanted to see the impact. Again, we shut the economy for about 2-3 months early last year, and that has a long-term effect. There are other shocks, external shocks, like the pronouncement from the world-leading economy. And look, IMF has revised downwards the world outlook in terms of performance. Our own GDP performance has also been below the earlier projections. Our revenue collections have been short of target. And, we have been trying to monitor to see how we are performing. And so where we are, we have a more realistic and clear view. Up to the end of April, we had collected 2.12 trillion. Now I think we may collect about 2.4 because up to today, up to 20th, if you add in total, we had collected about 2.25 trillion. Now that clearly, if you project, you see we may fall short of earlier projected or revised revenue targets, which we have been revising as we move forward because of uncertainty around the performance of the economy. So right now we have a clear view. With that clear view, we can now revise our budgets to fit into the actual revenue. And again, you will also take note that we didn't get the 9th review done with IMF, and so we didn't get that the 67 million US dollars that we were supposed to get after the 9th review. So we didn't get that. We agreed with IMF to push forward, to cancel the 9th review and get into another program. So that's that left us with a gap. Of course, we have managed to get some $500 million from the UAE, although we expected to get much more, to draw much more. We'll draw the rest next financial year. So all these factors, including the expenditure pressures, which are attributable first to CBAs that were signed with the NATs, COPETs, there's the university CBA, we have also the health sector. So all these, and again, the salary adjustment for our disciplined forces, that has put a strain and a pressure on some security operations, including in North Rift, the latest security incidences in North Rift, even our security from external threats like the Al-Shabaab, and those have put a little bit more pressure on our fundings. And again, you have to finance some of these things. So what to expect is not much in Supplementary 3. One, we'll just be looking at those areas where absorption may not be practical between now and June, and to take them off and see how we can use that again to help factor in some of these expenditure pressures. Mostly some allocation under security here and there, nothing really much this time. So the Supplementary 3 will just regularize a few expenditures around Article 2, where we have spent under Article 2 to 3, one of which was to pay the money for Ironi Mau Summit, the previous contractor who had to now hand over the project back to us to start a new process of PPP. There we have spent about 6.2 billion, and some security pressures where we have spent some little money. So all this cumulatively is what you'll see in Supplementary 3. Not much adjustments in terms of budgetary arrangements.
Right. Turning to external financing, the last conversation we had, we did speak about the termination of the IMF program, and you did let us understand that you wouldn't budget for any IMF disbursements in the new financial year. But looking at the framework up to 28-29, there is actually no allocation or expectations from the IMF. We know you are negotiating for a new program. Where do we stand? We are seeing basically a blank number on IMF.
Yeah, we are being very cautious because before you get into an arrangement with IMF, you can't start assuming that you'll get funding from IMF. So we are just being cautious, not that we are terminating our engagement with IMF. IMF, we have to continue in their program, even if it is not funded. But presently, we are pushing or pursuing a funded program. Funded program may not be so much going into the future because, again, we almost exhausted our quota. Even if we are opening some space by repaying, it's not much. So going forward, I want Kenyans to understand that IMF's primary responsibility is not to fund budgets of member countries. It's supposed to be for BOP, so balance of payment support. That is the major function of IMF, and to help countries when they are in financial distress. So it's not really like a banking institution where we go for. It is a fund. It's not a banking institution. It's not like World Bank. It's not a banking institution where you go and get loan. So going forward, we are trying to minimize our focus on IMF as an institution where we borrow money from, or a lending institution. But that does not mean we are stopping our engagement with the IMF. Let it not be construed that way. The moment we finish our negotiation with IMF, if we agree on a funded program, which we are pursuing, then out of that 284 billion shillings that we expect to get from external sources, we will shift some to IMF and reduce, say, commercial borrowing or even bilateral borrowing so that we fit into the fiscal framework, but by going to the multilateral, which is IMF, with a cheaper rates in terms of loan, the debt or the credit rates.
There were two other sources for external financing. World Bank about $750 million. IFDB also around 250 million USD. Where are we so far down the pipeline in terms of having those disbursements come in by June 30th?
Yeah, in terms of World Bank DPO, it is well on course. They gave us a promise that the board may sit sometime in June, which we were pushing them to have an earlier meeting in May. I guess maybe early June we'll have the board sit to approve that 750 million so that we can get the funding before the close of financial year. We really need it because that is the only amount that is now outstanding. Now, there were certain conditions that we needed to meet. A lot of them we have met. Actually, I think we are very much on course in terms of meeting those conditions. So once that is done, we'll get the money. It is my hope that we are going to get the money from World Bank sometime in June. That is next month. Now on African Development Bank, I think you have combined it with OPEC. The 216 includes FDB and OPEC. 200 from FDB, 200 million USD and 60 million from OPEC. We have basically concluded with OPEC. We signed the agreements and everything else. I think the money should be hitting our accounts anytime. If not this week, then next week. For FDB, I think we have, that is done. The money has come. And of course, we have used the money largely to pay for capitation to our schools and some other commitments. So, yeah, so the FDB money has already been disbursed to us. Yeah.
Yeah. So domestically, turning back domestically, pending bills, we've seen the stock of pending bills from your treasury reports come down. We also know the committee has been verifying some of these bills. I know there will be a big fight on what is unverified and what happens to it. What have been the actions around paying down pending bills, those verified, and making sure that the whole stock then is verified so that you sieve out what's payable and what's unpayable?
The latest report from the Pending Bills Verification Committee was that they had done about 578 billion, verification of 578 billion worth of bills out of the 663 billion. So that was over 70%, I think 72 or thereabout in terms of total verified bills. Now, that 578 or thereabout of pending bills that have been verified, only 229 billion worth of pending bills have been verified, have been approved or certified for payment. The rest, they have applied a brake for various reasons. Now, this verified pending bills of 229, about 80 billion or 81 billion of it has been are bills relating to the road sector. Now, you are aware that in the road sector, we have basically started the process of settling those bills using the securitization that we have talked about previously of the 7 shillings of the RML fund. So you can see the bills are coming down, partly because of the road sector where we are settling the bills and we have a strategy and is going on. So out of the 229, about 81 billion is road sector. So that leaves you with 148. Already we are working on a cabinet memo to make a proposal to the cabinet to approve so that we settle these pending bills worth 148 billion shillings. That time when we're done with the cabinet memo, I'm also sure that the committee will be done with the verification, and if there are additional bills, it will be it will be added there. So maybe give it a total of maybe 160, maximum 170 maybe, would be the total bills that we will finally settle. Now, that we will have a strategy and that will be communicated. I can't say right now because the cabinet is yet to make a decision on the same. The cabinet has just made a general decision or pronouncement that we must settle these pending bills. But we have also allowed, especially the verified pending bills, we have allowed that the MDS can also use their own resources to settle some of the bills. Especially Ministry of Defense has been settling some of those bills, outstanding bills, because you know the sensitivity of some of these ministries. So we are also, that is why the pending bills has been coming down. It is my expectation that if we just manage things the way we have started, we'll have dealt with the pending bills very soon.
In terms of the finance bill, we did see a softer finance bill, if I may call that so. There's many words you can use to do it. But people feel like looking at the medium-term revenue strategy, there were some expectations that maybe the VAT rate comes down, the corporate income tax rate comes down, pay also comes down for people. When exactly when will be the timing of these other measures that perhaps Mwananchi is watching out for?
Our national tax policy and the medium-term strategy talks or speaks to exactly what you're talking about, bringing down VAT, bringing down corporate tax. And these are things that we are working on. We did not start this financial year to bring down some of these rates because actually we did a simulation. We really tried to see the effect. In fact, we did a simulation if we reduced corporation tax to 28% from 30%, and we also worked with VAT coming down to 15%. We worked with such simulations, but our question was that the economy is not performing very well. When you are in an economy that is not performing very well, revenue collection is below target, it is too risky to start reducing tax rates. So we felt that we'd shelve or defer that decision to a time that we have monitored and we have implemented some of the revenue mobilization strategies like tax administration. So we started in this finance bill with largely focusing and targeting on tax administration. We want to look for ways of enhancing tax visibility, number one. Two, removing all the ambiguities around the tax laws which are hindering tax collection. And number three, also dealing with the tax expenditure. So these three have been our targeted areas. So once we see the effect, once we see that we are able to collect more revenue out of these initiatives, then certainly we are going to go to the next step where we now implement our medium-term strategy of lowering the tax rates to spur economic growth. It is something that is still in the works.
All right. On fiscal consolidation, there's a feeling that revenue alone might not cut it, as we see the pressures you described. But at the same time, on the other hand, we have the spending pressures. Education is one of the sectors that you've spoken to earlier. How will we achieve? Are we still on the way to achieving quite a lower budget deficit, or are we stuck on fiscal consolidation with the outturn of?
Not really. We are really seriously on course, and I think this year we are demonstrating that. One, we first resisted the temptation of over-projecting revenue. I would tell you, I am very, very confident that if there are no shocks to the economy, that for the first time we may now hit our revenue targets in a long while because we are realistic, we are more realistic. The base we have used is a more realistic base, and we have used a more realistic projection. So that is number one. Number two is that we as a country, the government, we took a bold step of even cutting on the BPS projections or provisions under the ceilings provided on the ceilings provided for under BPS. Radical. We reduced our budgeted expenditure by about 120 billion. And so we are at a point where I would say this budget deficit that we are projecting at 4.5, a maximum maybe it can go to 4.6, but we are working with 4.5 at the moment. This 4.5 budget deficit, we can manage to sustain it to the end of the financial year. Something we have not done previously. And so that is number one. The number two, on the expenditure, we are working on making expenditure efficient. And that is why we have come up with e-procurement. So apart from reducing the actuals for expenditure, we also want to make sure that we improve on the quality of procurement by reducing and cutting on waste, including corruption, so that we save more resources to go into service provision of services. So that is another very important, because we are able to save from empirical experience elsewhere, where we have compared with other places where e-procurement has been implemented, that you're able to save not less than 10% of the procurable part of your budget. And that means that in our case, if, let's say, we are procuring goods and services worth 1 trillion, which we procure more, then we can save 100 billion. And that 100 billion will go a long way in providing, in supporting education, in supporting health, which are the key areas. We can even put some money in infrastructure, areas like roads, and supporting even our counties, which currently are pushing for more revenue.